Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of High and Tight. We are joined today or tonight by Coach Mike Cassidy, the head coach at Marymount University. And let's get started.
Okay, let's do this thing.
Coach, how are we?
What's going on, man? Great to see you again.
Likewise. How a little cold up there? A little cold up there in Fairfax?
Well, it's brutal, and we're supposed to start practices next week, and it's supposed to be even worse. They're calling for some snow this weekend, so I hope we can get out on the field soon. But I'm just gonna have to prepare like all those northern schools that don't get out till March.
Yeah, of course. Like you said, the week that everything starts, I saw like 3 days next week. The high's like 20 to 27 degrees. I was at my grandparents yesterday. My grandpa's 90. And he was like, man, it ain't never been this cold. I was like, come on. It's been this cold. But it definitely doesn't happen much. You get the 60 and 70, the second and third week of December. And then we get, third week of January and we get to 20.
Yeah, exactly. I've been here my whole life. I've been here my whole life. I haven't seen the snow stick around like this since like we had like the blizzards, in the early 2000s. It needs to get off. We're lucky we got turf for practice and games, but need to get this stuff off the fields.
Yeah, I tell you, we don't get much sun behind our house, and we have a patio or whatever. And I don't think, I was just looking at it before we got on here, and I don't think that snow's ever going to, I don't think it's ever going to go away. It feels like everywhere else is good, but it literally gets no sunlight. And so it's just sitting there. And I got far better things to do, honestly, than go out there with a shovel. And the kids love snow. So then that way it just gives them a chance to look at it. So that's what I'm sticking with anyway. Now jumping into it here, take us through like your path to become the head coach at Marymount University, where you started and kind of what you've come from in the coaching ranks.
Yeah, I grew up in Northern Virginia. I went to Lake Braddock High School. I was a 3-sport athlete there. And always, all the sports that I did, I was really into the mental side of it and figuring out really how the sport works and how I can make myself better, not just physically. And I always had a feeling that I might get into coaching when I was all done playing. Went to Averett University, played 4 years there, and I was on the 4.5-year schedule to graduate. So I needed to stay for another semester, and my head coach, Ed Fulton, who was just an amazing coach, player coach, knows the game really well, asked me to stick around and said I could coach basically my best friends that I just played with. So I stayed for that year, and he didn't micromanage me at all. I fell in love with the college game of coaching at that point. Ran the outfielders, was his right-hand man with the hitters. And kind of came home and didn't know what I was going to do. I started doing camps at Virginia Baseball Club, and quickly kind of got into the business end of that, and partnered up with the owner of Virginia Baseball Club, and we opened up another location. So, I was doing the facility stuff and started coaching travel and things like that for years. And got involved with the Virginia Barnstormers. I was very, very lucky to get involved with Rick Hart and Chris Warren when they were doing that back in the day. And that kind of morphed into some other programs in 2000. And I also started coaching at O'Connell in 2007 as an assistant. I did that till 2012. 2013, I went back to Lake Braddock and coached there for a year. And that's when Marymount started the program. I was actually out with one of our travel teams at Old Dominion. And Frank Leone had started the program. He was out recruiting a year before. So we started fall of 13. He was out recruiting that summer. And the guy he had asked to be his recruiting coordinator and pitching coach, I played with in college. And Frank and Rick Hart were real close friends they were both from Rhode Island. So we all went out to eat when we were down there. And, I was catching up with my buddy, and Frank and Rick were catching up with each other. And my buddy was like, you should apply. We're starting this program and we're looking for a hitting guy. And so I applied in May when I was at Braddock and got the job, and I've been here ever since, and still been doing the facility stuff. Me and Mike Gallagher hooked up in 2016, and we brought our academies and our teams together to form Metro Baseball Academy and the Metro Senators. And I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I wouldn't be here now, without that collaboration, because him and Ryan Schubert and Connor Hall really make sure that the academy is going, with the day-to-day operations, and they do a great job with that stuff.
Now, going back, obviously, anytime you start a program, especially with where Division III baseball is currently, and has been for a bit in the state of Virginia, starting a Division III program in the state is a tough road to kind of travel. Marymount had 500-ish years from basically, I guess, kind of the second year in 2015 all the way basically to 2020. See the poster in the background there of the 2021 team. How did the program kind of turn the corner in the wins column starting in 21, and then with 2 of the last 3 years having 29 plus wins?
Hey, it's been a long road. It's been a lot of growth. I can remember when I was in college, I was like, man, when I went to a Division III school in Virginia, I was like, man, if Northern Virginia ever had a Division III school, like I think it would really take off. And we had always talked about, why doesn't Nova have a JUCO team? But yeah, I mean, when we got going, Frank put us right in there. He had the opportunity to do a year of just, JV games. But we stepped right in with like 27 freshmen, and right into the Capital Athletic Conference, which at that time it was Mary Wash was top 25. Salisbury was top 25. Frostburg State was in that conference. CNU was top 25. All these really good teams. York, Penn State, Harrisburg was kind of in the same position as us, growing, and they've really taken their school to another level. It was a very, very tough conference. I think the second year I was here, 2 teams from our conference went to the World Series. So I think taking our lumps when we were younger, and really sticking with our younger guys and developing them. Ever since I've been here, the assistant coaching staff has been unbelievable, and Frank brought so much to the program, developing these guys. It just took a long time. And then, in 2019, we started a new conference, and had an okay season that year. And I think that we thought we were going to be really good in 2019, when that was the first year of the Atlantic East Conference. And we were one of the founding members. And that's more of like your Philly teams, Marywood up in Scranton, and Centenary up in New Jersey. And we're the southernmost team in that conference. We thought we were going to do really well that year. It was a disappointing season for that senior class. I'll be honest, it's one of the worst feelings after a season I've ever had, because that was a special senior class. But it just seemed like right at the beginning of 2020, it was just different. I don't know if those younger guys who had learned from the older guys had a little chip on their shoulder or what. And we hit the ground running. We were having a great season when COVID kind of shut us down 20 games in. And then the next year, we finally just had that winning feeling. It was just progressing each year. And yeah, 2021 was really special. We only got to play. We got to play all of our conference games that year, and then 4 games out of conference. So we played. I want to say we finished up that year like 20-5, and won the conference. Made it to the regionals. Played 2 great games there. Lost to Salisbury and Washington Jefferson. It was a loaded region. It was really good baseball. And kind of ever since then, that's kind of been the goal and the standard. I really put the onus on the players. They're the ones who establish what we want. The coaching staff that I have is, if you want to say ultra competitive, that's kind of not even giving them their credit. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the players, and they've kind of established what they want every year and what they expect. At our level, the players have to do a lot of stuff on their own because the coaches can't be there a lot. And that's where our program is going right now, is just they expect to be playing on the last day of the year. And if that happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we're going to get back to work to try to get there every year.
Now, like, speaking of work and playing and your setup there is probably pretty ideal, I would say, at Cap One. The program gets the opportunity to play at Capital One Park in Fairfax. Beautiful field and setup. What are some other things that you think that stand out about the Marymount program, about the school, that like should be things that recruits look at and should stick out?
Number one is job opportunities. I mean, the market that we're in, it's amazing the jobs that our players and the students get when they come out of Marymount, like instantly. The area that we're in, we're a mile and a half from Boston and Clarendon and things like that. And, just as a young professional, it's one of the best places in the country to live. A lot of people, even if we recruited them from different locations, a lot of them end up staying in this area because they like it so much. So, when you get out of here and with our internship programs, you're going to have a really, really good opportunity to get a job, a really good paying job in an awesome area that just a lot of the country wants to live in right off the bat. As far as baseball, yeah, Capital One has been amazing for us. I mean, when we bring recruits out to a game, especially a night game, if it's warm, it's almost a done deal at that point. We are very, very lucky. They treat us like gold. We have a great practice facility. We use O'Connell High School, all turf. Again, that's about a mile from our field. So, if there's any class conflicts or anything like that, guys can go back and forth. We have a great training staff. We have a full-time strength and conditioning coach with an assistant. So our guys, the weight room culture is huge here, and we have everything we need. We just got to hit tracks. We've got Rapsodo. We've got a rec gym that the guys can work out in pretty much whenever they want. 2 drop down 80-foot tunnels so we can go live when we can't get out on the field, like when there's snow all over the place. And we also have, it's a little bit smaller than a football field, but we have a turf rectangular field on campus. So we don't have our baseball field on campus, unfortunately, but the guys can really get out there and get a lot of work done in their own time, or if we're having team practice on campus.
Now, I want to say I used to do some camps and stuff, and when Coach Leone was still there, and I want to say it might have been that turf field, that outside turf field where we talked about, I guess Scherzer might come out there and throw, and you're right there. And I guess you can maybe see the monument and pretty close to those types of things. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, you can see the cathedral right out there. Yeah, when Max was here, he used to use our weight room and things like that in the summer. He lived Washington Golf and Country Club backs up right to that back field. And there's a whole lot of athletes and politicians, things like that live in that neighborhood. But yeah, Max, you'd be walking around and you see Max down in the weight room getting after it, going Mad Max here. That was pretty cool. But yeah, the proximity of DC is great. But the other thing that's really cool about this school is we can definitely push the city life, but where our main campus is very suburban. It's very slow paced. It's very, very safe. So our school kind of has kind of the best of both worlds. I grew up in Northern Virginia, and if I had come to school here, it would have felt like I was going like 3 hours away. It's just it's a unique area that really has anything that you could be looking for.
Now, when you're talking about looking for something, what are some things that you and the staff look for in recruits? When we talk about positional guys, is athleticism, everybody wants athletes, but is that like a premium? Is it more projection? Is it more presentability? Same thing on the mound. Are we talking more projection arms, that maybe are big velo guys and need to figure out the field, or is it more strike throwers? Like what avenues kind of does your staff lean towards?
I think it's a mix. In all honesty, I think the way that over the last couple of years, like the talent pool has changed just because of so many bounce backs, so many transfers. Now with all the different rules, which I'm sure we're going to get into, there's just not as many spots out there for guys that would normally be going to a Division I school. So, I think it used to be like, man, that kid really throws hard. We got a couple years with them. We'll get him in the zone. Or that kid, he's got some legit pop. You can see that it's going to be there. He's swinging and missing a little bit too much, but we'll get him in front of our coaches and see what happens. I think that slowly right now, you have the opportunity to look at guys at where they are more in the moment. And you are looking for more refined players. Pitching, it's always strike throwing. It's for us. I watched it for so many years where we just had like nasty dudes that just, when they hit a guy, then it's a pass ball, then it's a pass ball, then it's a ground ball to shortstop, and they've scored. It's some of the nastiest stuff on the team. And we strike out two guys and a fly out, and we've given up a run where you can throw a guy out there that just hits his spots and throws strikes. And, two balls to the fence caught, and a double and a ground ball to shortstop, and you're out of the inning with no runs, So the pitching side, we want guys that can already mix multiple pitches for strikes at any time, and then we'll try to develop on the back end of that. Our coaches love developing. Our coaches love to coach. But if we can find a guy that's throwing 85 and throwing strikes with a good breaking ball and a changeup, that's pretty nice. He doesn't have to be throwing 92 right now, spraying it all over the place. So I think that's kind of where it's changed over the last couple of years is that pool. You can get more refined, talented players. I mean, I think the talent right now in baseball is better than I've ever seen in my life when I go out. The absolute talent. But we're looking for high IQ guys. We're looking for ball players. We're looking for guys that want to get dirty, that don't talk a lot. And we really like to recruit from programs that win, high school programs that have a winning culture. I think that's been the biggest difference probably over the last, kind of since I took over, where, we were winning at the right time and we were getting really good players. We really focused in on guys who had won in high school. And when you get a lot of winners together, you don't have to do a lot of culture building. They just kind of act the way that they already have and feed off of each other.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that's kind of been a recurring theme, regardless of whether it's Division I or Division III. Talked with Coach Posey, talking with you now, Coach Noe, Coach Roberts at VMI, like strike throwers, guys who compete in the zone, guys who win, guys who are used to winning and don't like losing. You take somebody who, is competitive, right? And they're on a losing team, that's kind of a trickle down, right? They're used to losing. They want to compete when they're on the field and all that. But it's just not the same as that competitor that is used to winning and just like hates losing. My kids don't quite understand it. It doesn't matter what we play. Like, I guess we were playing like Uno or something like that, and I was like, and my daughter was like, you got to be a good loser. I was like, there's no such thing. Like,
Dude,
like I
I
don't care what it is. I want to
we're
win.
doing right now in the athletics office. We're doing a crock pot cook off, right? So like for the last 2 months, you get paired up with someone. You each bring in a crock pot. Everybody votes on it. If you win, you move on to the next round. So I'm in the semifinals. So I was up this morning finishing up my stuff, and they're going to be voting on it here in a little while. And I was driving in. I was like, man, if I lose this thing, number one, I'm going to be pissed. And when I get home, my wife is going to be pissed at me for losing. Like it's everything. It's everything, you know? So
But I mean, I think that, like you said, like sometimes the culture and the accountability and things like that take care of itself because it's what they're used to. And coming from a program like Lake Braddock, and I know that's somewhere that's, I guess probably pretty close in proximity to where y'all are. I'm not John Nolan. I don't know every route and where everything is up there. But like that's a program that's won, and I know you have some players from that program. With such a large contingency of the roster coming from the DMV area, only about a dozen or so players from outside of the DMV. With so many players from the DMV area, how much do you and your staff follow along in the spring, since y'all do recruit so heavily in the Mid-Atlantic, if you will? How much do y'all follow along in the spring with what we're doing, video on guys, whether it's us or them posting stuff up or whatever it is?
yeah, I mean, I don't think we're out of the norm here. Like whenever we get something from a player, we're interested in player, we're gonna go on their Twitter and we're gonna go on PBR. We use it a ton, and that's kind of where we get our baseline. And Twitter will tell you a lot about the kit. I mean, that's something we didn't talk about with the players and recruiting and stuff like that. And no matter how good you are, if you're not a good person, it's not going to work out here. I think that's been we've always had great kids in this program, and, mixing guys with talent and that are just good human beings. We need to make sure you're going to fit in. And that's been huge with the transfer portal for us too. It's so easy to be like, oh, that kid's coming from George Mason. He's probably going to be one of the most talented kids on our team. But like, if you bring in guys that just aren't going to fit, I don't care how talented you are, you're not going to win the championships that you want. You got to have the right mixes of guys. But sorry, I kind of steered off of that a little bit. But yeah, no, Shane Holly was our recruiting coordinator when I took over, promoted him to recruiting coordinator. He's now at JMU, and we promoted Sam Bender to recruiting coordinator. And both these guys just do an amazing job of doing their homework online with platforms like yours. The great thing about recruiting a lot in our backyard is I'm still a fan of my high school. I know so many of these high school coaches. I'm friends with them. I'm fans of their programs. So, the season is crazy, but I love getting out to a Friday night high school baseball game, man. I think the atmosphere, you want to talk about really recruiting and seeing what kind of person you're going after and what you're getting. You go watch them against their rival high school in a big game. So yes, especially for the guys out of town, we rely a lot on platforms like yours. But we do try to get out and see our incoming guys as much as possible and see guys that we might want to be recruiting. And again, it's a plus for me because I like going out and watching some high school games when it's a Lake Braddock, West Springfield, or it's a Westfield in Madison. It's great baseball around here.
Well, I think that's a luxury for you and your staff, to have so many high schools and such good baseball within, just say a 30-40 minute, depending on traffic, a 30-40 minute time frame. to be able to get out a little bit easier, like you said, on a weeknight. If y'all are having practice, you said your practice field is O'Connell. Um, there's no lights at O'Connell, so we get our practice done when it's light, and then that Friday night lights for baseball, or that night game for baseball or whatever. Um, you're able to get out and see so much in that area. So I'm sure that is a luxury that a lot of other staffs, regardless of the level, that a lot of other staffs don't necessarily have.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, I drove out to Loudon yesterday to run some errands. We're not far from there. And I mean, Loudon baseball right now is just a hotbed. I mean, there's so many good teams. I live in Dumfries, so I get to see a lot of those, especially when regions come around. A lot of those teams play at Colgan and things like that. So I get to see those guys there. Coach Bender is from Montgomery County, he lives in Bethesda, so he's out working on that part of the DMV, the Montgomery County side. If we want to stick around after practice and O'Connell's playing St. John's, we got the WCAC right there. My business partner is assistant coach at Paul VI. So I try to get out and see them play again as a fan, but also seeing what these schools have. And I mean, there's so many good players in this state, in this area, out west at the beach. I mean, Richmond, they're everywhere, but being able to be right here and see the WCAC, the Northern region, the Occoquan region, and getting out into Loudon without having to drive 3 hours is a huge perk.
It must be nice not having to drive 3 hours to get to Loudon to a game. Can't say the same. Um, how much has the portal? You talked about transfers and the trickle down and stuff like that earlier. How much has the portal affected your recruiting efforts, and how is your program treating that, as well as like continuing to recruit high school baseball players?
You're always going to start with the high school guys. Again, we want to develop, we want to coach, and transfers. We're not rolling out the ball to you, either. We want to coach. If you got aspirations of playing in pro ball, we've got coaches that played and coached in pro ball. We want to try to get you there, even if you're the best player on the team. We want to develop everybody, and we want to coach everybody, but it's made a huge impact on our program. Again, when Frank left for Mount St. Mary's, our program was in a really, really good place. We won at the right time. Right after COVID, right when guys were deciding, do I want to go back home? Do I want to go somewhere else, where a lot of this stuff blew up? So, getting guys out of the portal, getting JUCO guys it's been really good, and it hasn't been too tough for us because of our location and kind of where we're at in the program. I think where it's changed is, we have a 52-man roster this fall. We don't have a roster limit. So we know how many guys are graduating, and you just got to kind of leave a couple spaces if a kid just wants to go to UVA and finish up his education and be at a big school. It's, everybody's different, but usually you get one or two of those, and then you got to plan for the portal just in case. But we have an open door policy that as long as our guys come in and talk to us about possible plans of doing something like that, we will be 100% honest with you and where we see you, and if it's a good idea or not. And we try to promote those grown-up conversations. We don't want anyone to leave, but if you have just dominated and you've given us all your effort and it's easy for you and we think it's a great idea, we'll help just like I would help one of the Senators players trying to get into a college. You know what I mean? Now, if we tell you we don't think it's a good idea, then you're gonna be on your own at that point. But as far as us bringing in guys, it's been huge. We kind of have to now save spots. If we know we got to bring in 18 guys, we're not going to be bringing in 18 high school kids. We just have to keep some options open as we head into spring, into summer. We had two transfers come in mid-semester. or mid-year this year. It's changing more and more with the roster changes, and I think this summer is going to be crazy, the craziest summer as far as transfers that it's ever been. So we just got to keep our ear to the ground, and that is a priority. The bulk of our guys are always going to be high school kids, because you don't want to transition too much. But man, to me, the grad transfers have been amazing for our program. Even if we only have them for 1 year, the guys that have gone through 4 years, especially if they came from a winning program, it's been instrumentally positive for our culture and just the way the guys get after it when they're working on their own and when they're at practice.
I mean, you think it's safe to say like those transfers, whether it be grad transfers or just regular portal guys, you think it's safe to say like a lot of times best fit for those guys are guys that are coming in that can be kind of immediate contributors versus like, hey, I didn't play here. Um, well, we don't know if you're going to play here, and the player moved on because of the fact that they didn't play. Would you agree that that's might not always be the best fit?
Yeah, I think it's a mix, man. I think that's where you really got to do your homework on the phone with the kid. Take the baseball part out of it. Like, if a school's recruiting you, you can play. That's the easy part. I think that's where you really got to do your homework of what are the goals of this player? Does it fit with what we're looking for? Why is he making this decision? Is he leaving because he doesn't want to compete? Because just because you're coming here doesn't mean you're going to be starting. If he's not going to be playing a lot, is he going to be a great influence on the players that we have right now and keep competing to try to get on the field? I mean, we don't recruit out of 52 guys. We're not recruiting anyone that we don't think can be on the field for us. We want those guys to make our jobs as coaches be extremely tough when we're filling out a lineup card or deciding who's going to throw in a game. And that's what we're trying to be 1 through 52. So not every transfer that we've brought in has just come in and been an impact guy. But most of them have been impact guys either on the field or in our clubhouse or both.
Now, if we're talking about younger players, I know we've hit on the portal and transfer guys a little bit. When we're talking about younger players, what is one thing, two things, just that you would say, advice you would give to younger players or even their parents, families in preparing for their recruitment, whatever that timeline is, right? Whether they're a guy who's going to get 15 offers on August 1, going into their junior year, or whether they are, fall going into their senior year trying to figure out what's some advice that you would give?
So I think the more self-accountable you are in everything that you're doing with this process and in your day-to-day life is huge. The freshmen that come in that seem to impact us at an earlier stage than others aren't asking questions all the time, aren't asking for help for things all the time. They're figuring things out on their own, and they've been kind of practicing that in their day-to-day life before college, whether it's having a good schedule and sticking to a routine. Again, I get questions all the time that I'm like, I don't know, and I have to Google it. Like, why don't you Google that before you ask me or ask one of your teammates? Just trying to get past that step of them having to depend on mom and dad for everything or their coaches, for everything. That is huge. That's what we're trying to build. That's what we're trying to send out into the world, into the professional world is young men who can handle themselves and take care of themselves and take care of the people around them. But I think the biggest thing now, Jason, that's kind of changed over the last year or two is I would research schools early, and I would open up the scope of where I'm looking. I would have a much broader scope, whether that's location, whether that's what division you want to play at, whether it is, you know, again, I'm seeing 4.0 guys go to junior college. Junior college baseball is awesome. NAIA is going to keep going through the roof with the players that they're going to be getting. So there's so many schools out there. If you really, really love this game and you want to put in the work to play at the next level, it's getting tougher and tougher. This is going to be the toughest couple of years. And we said it the last couple of years, and it keeps getting tougher, but this is going to be the toughest couple of years for graduating high school players to play in college. So opening up what you're looking for and doing it earlier than you think.
Yeah, and I think there's an old adage of there's a place for everybody to play. It may not fit where you dreamed that you could play or unrealistically think that you can play. But I went last year and had an opportunity to watch Chase Burns on Friday night. And I think two or 3 weeks prior to that, I was watching a team that did not have quite as much talent as a JUCO team. And I'm telling you, like that old adage, like it may seem cliche, people may disagree. But I agree with Coach, like broaden your scope. If you want to play this game bad enough, there are places that you have a pretty good chance and pretty good opportunity to go and be on a roster and develop and be better. But I think we have to be realistic. And I think we have to, like Coach said, ask questions. Every single event that we do personally, we tell the players, like you were just alluding to, hey, be proactive. Players take some ownership. At the end of the day, this is your career, if you will, right? Like everybody's time is going to end at some point. You have a lot of say, for the most part, and kind of when your time ends. So take that ownership and take that onus with it and kind of put your foot forward. And like you said, ask questions. We tell all the guys at our events, hey, reach out, and if you have questions, if you think you could fit at this school, if you think you could fit at that school, ask. Like, we're going to be honest with you, but ask. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't take advantage of is the resources they have, whether they're a Senators player, asking Coach Cassidy or Coach Gallagher or someone in that organization, like, hey, where can we go play? Or asking, someone who has seen them play, who does it for a living or does it on a regular basis. Ask questions, take some ownership, be accountable for everything you do. And I think if you do that and you work hard, like there's a place for you to play.
Yeah. And ask, like, when you're at these events, ask the college coaches that are there. We were just at the convention, like it's 10,000 coaches running around, and you can stop and ask anyone something, and it's going to be a 30-minute conversation because everybody wants to throw ideas back and forth and talk about the state of baseball and where we're at. Like it's a very open forum in our sport. But nobody's going to really just go out of their way to say, hey, you need to do this, and this. Like there's just too many kids out there and not enough spots. But if you ask a college coach something in person, I guarantee you're going to get an answer. Now, it might not be the answer you want, or it might be the answer that you're looking for. But I haven't met too many guys in this game that I work with that aren't open to sharing their opinions and guidance for players.
Well, what's the old MJ saying or whatever? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you got to be willing to take the shot. I guess the new term is shoot your shot. Is that right, Coach? You're around the college guys now.
Oh man, I'm okay with it, but sometimes it's like another language. I got it. I have to keep up with it. I'm better than most people, but yeah, sometimes I'm just like, what would you say?
Yeah, no, events and all that. Like I hear some of the things, and I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I'll come home and just say something to them. The kind of the old dad joke thing, and they're like, "No, don't do that. Don't do that anymore." Um, I will say this, as a credit to Northern Virginia as a whole, and maybe like it's just kind of tunnel vision or whatever you want to call it. I felt like there were more players this year at the convention than I have seen in past years. And, I won't call the guys out, but I saw, I don't want to say countless, but a fair number of high school players and even youth players around the expo center and walking around. And I don't know how many talks they went into and stuff like that. But just like being in that environment and socializing, and whether they asked questions or sat in on talks. I know there's a bunch of youth clinics and things like that. Um, I just thought it was a heavier presence this year at the ABCA with younger players. And again, it might be because, I know a lot of them and recognize a lot of them. Um, but did you notice that at all?
I saw the same exact thing. I actually ran into my wife's old neighbor, him and his son, and and my wife came up to the expo one day as well, and she noticed that there were kids there. She's like, "Why are there kids here?" And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you be here?" I was like, "That's
Right.
awesome." I mean, again, why are we there? We're trying to learn, you know. We're trying to pick up things and meet people and just have a good time talking about the game that we love. And no, the sooner you can do stuff like that. I ran into parents as well. I think it's great. I mean, I think there's a very large lack of knowledge of what's actually going on and what people are looking for when it comes to parents and even some coaches of the way it was 3 years ago compared to what it is now. And I don't think it's anyone's fault when sometimes the wrong message is sent because again, 3 years ago it might have been correct. But the more knowledge you can pick up on of what is happening right now and supporting your players to help them achieve their dreams and being realistic with them, I think it's huge. And attending something like that convention, going to a college practice, going to a college game, little things just to see what you're up against and not to discourage anybody, but to say, all right, man, those guys are 30 pounds bigger than me and they're not fat. I need to get in the weight room, to push yourself to get to the goals that you want to reach.
Yeah, I can't wait for the conversation, coach, of the 10-year-old that's 5'3" and 110 pounds, comes up to you and asks you about such and such that was talking about their 6'3", 230-pound hitter, how he does this, that, and the other. That they were at the convention and got that and listened in on that clinic, how they can hit like them. So just go buy Chipotle and load up and keep growing.
Yeah,
Uh,
go have fun, man. You're 10. Just enjoy this game every second of it.
Now, speaking of younger, to wrap this up, give me one piece of advice to young Coach Cassidy if you were doing it over again.
Have more fun with it. I'm really this year. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and a similar question was brought up. Again, we talked about competitiveness, and Frank kind of warned me going into this. I'll give old Uncle Frankie some credit right here. He was like, take some time for yourself. Make sure you don't get too wrapped up in this, and especially having the business and really trying to build this program into a national recognition every year. You know, I talked about how last year was it was the first team I've ever coached, and I've coached great teams, but that where it just got to the point where every day we showed up, I felt like we were going to win. Like, but I was still on edge internally. Like it was like almost a relief when the games would end. Man, this year I'm going to have that same mindset of expecting to win, but I really want to enjoy this. So sorry. I really want to enjoy every moment. I want to enjoy practice more. I want to enjoy just being around the guys more. And you know, we can't control whether we're going to win or lose. It's something I've been talking about with the team a lot is just put ourselves in the position to win. Okay. Because if we you can do everything wrong and win, and you can do everything right and lose. So let's just enjoy every moment, being around each other, trying to put ourselves in the right position to win, giving ourselves a shot, and we'll see how it all turns out. So
I think that can go for a lot of different ways, especially if we're talking about, a high school player or a younger player or whatever. Commit to the process, enjoy the process, have fun with it, and kind of let the results lie where they may.
yep.
Coach, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the relationship, um, and our communication, and hanging out at the ABCA, and all of those fun times. And we wish you the best of luck this spring.
Dude, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you even thinking of me because, yeah, I have a blast every time we're together, and just whether it's at events or something like the ABCA or just texting. Thank you guys for all that you do, and all the coaches that are coming on here and who you've already had on. Best of luck this year. Just keep enjoying this stuff, and thank you very much, Jace.
Yes, sir. Stay warm.